Welcome to Collegial Conversations with Diana Clark, the professional webinar series that offers clinical and personal perspectives on issues that are common, but often not talked about. Here is today's Collegial Conversation.
Thank you for joining Collegial Conversations with Diana Clark. Today we have Dr. Debi Gilmore joining us. Dr. Debi Gilmore is the co-owner of the EFT Clinic, a mental health clinic with 3 locations across the state of Utah, specializing in marriage and family therapy. She is a therapist, a clinical trainer, an author, and a public speaker. Dr. Gilmore is a frequent presenter and keynote speaker at professional conferences and special events for the general public. She achieved her doctorate in marriage and family therapy, and her doctoral dissertation was a relationship education program that is now being taught and used by therapists and religious leaders across the world. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will now pass the conversation over to you two.
Thank you, Alex. And Debbie, thank you. I'm going to call you Debbie instead of Dr. Debi Gilmore because it's a tongue twister. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're joining us today and really appreciate you carving out this window of time. I know you're a busy woman. I know that you continue to see patients. I know that you do a lot of supervision and education, and we're honored to have you today. So thank you.
Thank you, Diana. What a warm welcome. And, I'm here because I enjoy talking about this profession that I have a passion for. So it's very easy to carve time out for this purpose. So thank you for having me.
So let's start with the basics, the alphabet. EFT stands for emotionally focused therapy, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. How does that differ from other marriage and family therapies that are out there?
Such a great question, Diana, and an important one, because the reason this is so different, it is not behavioral. Behavioral couples therapy has been in our world for 50, 60, 70 years. Right. And it's always been a respected model of therapy, one that's easy to learn and easy to convey to couples. Emotionally focused therapy is distinctly different, has only been around for about 2 decades, and is focused on the experience that happens in the office. It's not, you say this, you do that, go home, next week we'll return and talk about what you experienced. Change happens in our office. Yes.
So give me an example. I love that. When people have called me and said, do we need marriage therapy? I'm like, 20 years ago, I would have said, is it something that you need help with skill building? Do you need to learn how to talk to one another or refrain from saying things? Then I would say yes. If it's about creating the essential connection, that is where marriage and family therapy seems to fall short. And what you're describing is that potential, correct?
Absolutely. And, it's important to talk about the research and what research has found as it compares the 2 models. There is a place for behavioral couples therapy. The skills are necessary. Premarital couples need to know what are the practical things that we need to know and do. But with emotionally focused therapy, they found that couples, as they go through a course of this therapy, after they've stopped the therapy, they continue to improve. The stability over 5 years, they go back and they find these couples with a longitudinal study and find that they have continued to find stability and improved in their closeness. They know what to do when conflict rises up. And they also are more self-aware, which is another reason why this therapy is so good. It makes them individually better people.
Wow. So let's do an example. Imagine I am married to a very stoic man, and we're coming in to your office in Utah, and I'm going to bet that there are a few of those stoic men in Utah.
Yes.
And it looks like in that first meeting that the wife is doing all of the emoting and he is just sitting there. How do you handle that situation?
Diane, I love this question too. When they enter my office, I know that I have 2 people that at one time were little children longing to be chosen as a friend. And coming from a family that, for whatever reason, had hurts, and if you have relationships, you're going to have hurts as well. So when they sit on my couch, I see them as people with very real experiences. It doesn't matter how successful that stoic man is in his business dealings. He has feelings, and maybe over time has disowned those feelings because didn't know how to deal with them. Maybe learned to stuff those feelings away. Maybe in his career, he's learned that men don't cry and men are only all powerful and leaders with no emotion. So knowing that, I can talk with them with that understanding. And for some reason, they know that I know. And I can walk into their internal selves gently and respectfully and find that emotion. And talking about the wife, in this case, you painted the picture as the wife is the pursuer, the one that wants to talk and emote. We find the opposite too. It's not gender specific.
No.
So in that regard, I might have a very withdrawn, quiet wife and a husband who longs for passion, longs to talk about it, wants to emote. And so and I love that too, that it's not gender specific. So I hope that answered your question, Diana.
It's all about which person in that dynamic is disowning feeling.
Exactly.
It could be the woman who had never felt safe. It could be the man who is taught. Yeah. It could be, lots of scenarios. I can see that.
So, Diana, let me give you an example of how I open them up.
Okay.
So let's just say that stoic man is sitting there with his sweetheart. And I know that he's there either because he chose to be or because she said we're going to therapy.
Right.
So I might explore with him and ask, when you were a little boy and you scraped your knee and it was bloody and hurting so bad, who did you run to for comfort? And his answer is very telling. If he sits there for a minute and thinks and can't find a memory of who he ran to, that tells me he didn't run to anyone. He dealt with it on his own. Sometimes they'll say something like, oh, I remember sitting in my grandma's lap, not mom, not dad, or my aunt, or even saying, I knew that I couldn't bring it to anyone because in our family, we didn't do that. So it tells a lot. And I can offer validation and understanding right in that moment. Oh, it makes sense to me then why you wouldn't want to talk about how hard it's been today.
No practice.
Right. No model. No, because we learn by observation as children and as adults. So here he is in a world that you observe people and they just walk with their heads high and move towards success. In marriage, different.
Marriage is different.
Yeah.
So let's imagine that man, and we're using man as an example, gets in touch with a memory of hurt in that moment. What I wonder is, how do you transfer that understanding? And transfer might be a wrong word, but how do you transfer that understanding and that level of compassion to the other listener in the room?
There you go. A nice segue into our main goal is that we can help them connect. So I'm walking with him, trying to open up in mind for more understanding. When he can uncover that feeling and that memory and talk with me about it, I help him put together a package of information that he can then, with courage and risk, turn and share with his sweetheart. That's really where true change moments occur. And it's hard initially because they have to find the courage to risk. It might go badly. He might turn and share and she won't hear him the way he wants her to hear him. But in my experience, what we call enactments, that's in therapy, a term that we use when they turn to each other and will share. And as they do that, and with my encouragement, can share with their partner, this unveils all kinds of new feelings for the partner. And you can imagine the wife longing to know these things about her sweetheart, finally hearing it. So then I get to process with her. And
What
when that
like,
happens, yes, what was that like for you, wife? And he's hearing this, and that becomes the validation through this therapy process. This is the epitome of EFT, and I love it. And it's rewarding for me. Sometimes, Diana, when I witness these moments, I feel like I'm in a sacred space and I want to withdraw.
right? It's too, yeah, I'm observing something too personal. I want out, right?
Yes, exactly. And it feels almost like if I move, I will disrupt their connection.
That
But
bubble.
it's memorable. And another key principle of EFT is when they're experiencing these moments, they may not remember what was said, they remember what they felt, and they leave changed.
So let me ask a question then. What I know about neuroscience is about this much. But I know that when people actually genuinely connect, it does something to our brains.
It
It does something to our cortisol levels, our oxytocin levels. It does something. What
Yes.
is that why EFT works? Because we are
Yes. Yes.
on
Now,
Earth.
I am a brain science nerd. I'm admitting this coming out of the closet right now with you. Very important things happen in the brain when they connect with each other. What we know about oxytocin is when this connection happens and they're looking into each other's eyes, that hormone with a lingered connection, lingering look or touch, oxytocin is released in the body. The brain signals that dump of that hormone. And both the male and female can experience this. It's a warm, calming feeling, which directly counters cortisol, the
Right.
release of the stress hormone in the body.
Yeah.
And science, doctors know this now through research, and they're using it in hospital settings. Why? Because it's healing. So you can see this is what we are having experienced in EFT sessions with our couples. And for that matter, I feel it as the therapist.
Sure. I mean, I do think it's one of the reasons why peer-driven AA can work. It is one of the reasons that therapy works, aside from any word that gets said. It is the connection that goes on in those rooms that is the healer, right?
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you brought up brain science because that helps couples who are investigating, do I want couples therapy? And why would I? Does it really work? Yes, it does. It's
Yeah.
hard work and it takes patience, it takes courage, it takes trust in the therapist. So instead of being a coach, I'm actually walking with them as a part of their team. And so we
Excellent.
build this alliance together. So another wonderful part of what I do.
So do you have a concrete example of a success story that you could share with us?
Oh, thank you for asking. I have many. Which one do I choose? I
I
have,
would love one that includes betrayal, because in our culture, betrayal, either economic or sexual betrayal or relational betrayal, happens all the time. So, how would EFT manage that kind of situation?
that's a very important and unique aspect of what we do. Healing an attachment injury, which is a betrayal, a specific event or a revelation of betrayal that traumatizes the relationship. Now
Right.
the security is gone. So when a couple like that enters in my office, which is all too many, it's unfortunate, but we see it, then I explain to them their role. And the offender, I have to use that term. What do you call them? They're the one that made the mistake. They have a specific role, and the hurt partner has a specific role. In emotionally focused therapy, it's all about slowing down and allowing the hurt partner to talk about the impact of the trauma. And the problem we have with the one who made the mistake is they are covered in shame. So I need to have compassion and empathy for them and help empower them to find the courage to sit with it. But when they do, they eventually become the hero because they are the healer. Yeah.
That's right.
And if I can help them understand that, miracles happen. The hurt partner finally feels heard, is beginning to feel understood, and does start to rebuild the trust. So this is a really simplistic overview of that process, but Diana, it works when they can have the guidance of an EFT therapist that can hold their hand through that process and encourage both of them to stay in the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remain connected and not be consumed by shame. Shame is a big barrier toward being able to heal. So that's talking about the offending partner, but the hurt partner has a place in their heart and their soul that's bleeding. So I will say to the offending partner, we've got to stop the bleeding.
Cauterize. Yeah.
We have to cauterize and stop the bleeding. Do you have the courage to do that? I will show you how.
That's lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely.
It is. It actually
You've
is.
also said to me during one of our conversations, people in EFT, people lean in instead of this.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love that concept of leaning in when we're most vulnerable and most want to run away. Lean in.
Yes. Diana, can I talk about that briefly? It's literally and figuratively we lean in. Proximity with our body, with the couple, actually can evoke emotion and create safety. For example, when we're in an intense moment and I'm processing the emotion, I will lean in, roll my chair in toward the couple and be with them so that they have more courage to risk and expose the emotion. When the couple is sharing, doing an enactment, I'm rolling out, I am out of it so that they have this intimate moment of sharing. So leaning in and leaning out, zooming in and zooming out. That's what we do.
I like that. So tell me one more thing before we close today. Who has been your hero to teach you where you got to in your career or personal life that helps you do the work you do?
Oh, I don't want to get emotional, but I do have a mentor and a hero who's now my business partner, a worldwide EFT trainer, Dr. Rebecca Jorgensen. And I recall long, long ago when I first entered into the training of EFT, and I remember being afraid I sat on the front row because I'm an A student, that's what we do. But I remember being so afraid that she would be disappointed in me. And I recall when I asked a question and her gentle answer was the model of what we do. And she just held my question with this compassion and then entered into this whole new connection and now dear friendship. So she has not only helped me, but encouraged me to rise up and become a teacher of the model. So great question. Thank you. I also owe a lot to many of the other worldwide EFT trainers who have embraced me as a colleague, and Dr. Sue Johnson, who founded this whole model of therapy. She's been a tremendous asset to the world and to me in my growth as a therapist.
Love that. Well, Debi, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate the conversation, and I know our audience has gotten so much out of it.
Thank you, Diana. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining this webinar. Tune into more webinars and sign up for our newsletter at o'connorpg.com.